The Democrat Party basically exists to call everything in America today racist.
This talk from the Biden administration about white supremacy and how this actually is discussed and what the realities of white supremacy in America may be. This was from the speech just a few moments ago from Joe Biden in Buffalo.
White supremacy is a poison. It's a poison running through it really is. Running through our body politic. And it's been allowed to fester and grow right in front of our eyes. No more. I mean, no more. We need to say as clearly and forcefully as we can that the ideology of white supremacy has no place in America. None. And look, failure for us to not say that, failure in saying that, is going to be complicity. Okay. Silence is complicity.
That's the point I want to get. Silence is complicity. First of all, the conservative movement, the Republican Party, white supremacy is vile and evil and wrong, and we all know it. White supremacy in the context of the racist belief that some people, in this case white people, are better than other people by virtue of skin color, that's an illogical, immoral, and absurd theorem. And it can be obviously also very devastating and violent when put into practice. The problem comes in, Clay, with how the left actually defines white supremacy. And this is where things become much more politicized, because we can all agree on white supremacy. And if it's somebody with swastika tattoos, a shaved head, that's neo-Nazis, for example, or what we think of as white supremacists. This is from the New York Times. Okay, this is from the New York Times just a couple of years ago. White supremacy once meant David Duke and the Klan. Now it refers to much more. The phrase has poured into the nation's rhetorical bloodstream. Organizations from the NFL to art museums to colleges requiring the SAT are accused of perpetuating it. So I want everyone to see the rhetorical trick here. They say that we all must stand against white supremacy. And Clay, we would also, of course, we stand against white supremacy. But then they also expand the definition of white supremacy simultaneously to be a college that requires the SAT. This is in the New York Times. And this is where the political effort comes into play.
Racism didn't poll well enough for Democrats anymore. And so they tried to label everything as white supremacy. And the reality is, if white supremacy truly existed in an epidemic fashion in the United States, we would deal with, for instance, not fair elections. Because if white people truly said only white people should get elected, then only white people would get elected for every office of all time. The truth of the matter is this, and this is what I wish a president would say. Racism exists. Racism in general has never been lower than right now in the United States. And the United States is probably the least racist country in the history of the world. Also, all races have racists. This would change the conversation overnight, because right now when we talk about racism, we really only talk about racism when it's white involving black, right? We never talk about any other race. And anybody out there listening, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, understands this. There are white racists. There are black racists. There are Hispanic racists. There are Asian racists. Every race has elements of racism inside of it. And all of it should be soundly and roundly condemned. They were asked about this in the White House. Why has Joe Biden never actually found the time to make a trip to Waukesha to talk to all of those horrible victims of a racist attack? And the answer, probably not surprisingly to you, not a good one.
How come the president is visiting Buffalo after a senseless tragedy there but he couldn't visit Waukesha after 6 were killed and 61 injured in an attack on a Christmas parade there.
I mean, he's visited many communities. Buffalo, he's able to go tomorrow to Buffalo before the trip. That is something that was important for him to do. But he has visited many other communities. Buffalo is not the first community, sadly, that he has to go up to because of a violent attack. So, that's not the first one. So he's been to many others.
The answer is because the attacker in Waukesha challenges the argument that only white people can be radicalized by our discussions if it occurs because of discussions in media and at large. And it also challenges the idea that only white people can be racist and engage in acts of violence. So Biden doesn't go there. And you might say, well, what's the significance of that? Because when the president travels, all of the media that follows the president wherever he goes writes about what he discusses. And imagine how much different of a national conversation we have if a president just came out and said what I did, all racism is wrong, but white, black, Asian, and Hispanic people all can be guilty of racism, and we have to combat it everywhere.
The one part of this that doesn't, I think, get nearly enough attention in the debates overall about how we discuss this nationally, Clay, is the left rejects. You keep saying, for example, and you're right, any person can be racist against another person.
Yes.
If you look at a person's physical appearance, their skin color, or there are other things too, but their skin color, for example, and think less of them, you are engaging in racism. It doesn't matter what your race is, what the other person's race is. The left openly rejects that. They say that is not in fact the case.
Yes.
They say that black against white racism is not possible because of power imbalance and the power dynamics of history. So it's important to note that while we can sit here and say we all agree, people listening to this may agree that it's possible for any person, same way anyone can be, any person of any background can be smart or dumb, good or bad, wise or foolish. Any person has the capability of racism in their heart, regardless of what the specific social dynamic may be. The left openly, their official doctrine on this is that is not true. In fact, they go even further, and they will say that black on Asian racism, because we've talked about that here. Remember the whole Stop AAPI hate thing, which lasted...
disappeared when it came out that black people were doing almost all the attacks on Asians.
A few weeks of that, and then everyone realized, hold on a second, we have video. And it does not look like a majority of these attackers against Asian Americans. Yeah, we all know what happened there. There were a lot of attackers caught on video, so there was no question who were black. And then the left went into this mode of, well, black against Asian racism in these cases is actually the result of, ready for it?
White supremacy.
White supremacy.
They want to destroy America. And the way to destroy America is to point out, rightly, that white men were involved in creating America. They drafted the Constitution. They drafted the Declaration of Independence. They arrived as colonists on shores populated by people who were already here. And if you can destroy the legitimacy of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and all of the founding fathers who had a wide variety and expansive background of ideas about all different sorts of democratic processes, then you can destroy the fabric of this country and tear down all of its legitimacy. And that's what the goal is. That's truly what the goal is. The Democrat Party basically exists to call everything in America today racist. That's what they do.